Hi, welcome to the Sacred You podcast. I'm Rachel Goodwin, and I'm a channel and healer who loves to teach and empower others. I offer a look at spirituality in fresh and new ways, and you can see more of my work at my website at rachelgoodwin.dk and the classes and sessions that I do. Auheia valeana oe e kahaliko puhakukui kuhia o kaunaia a kahapu kumamoninei Pikoi kahimanaho I kahapili koholuaia Ea ke kaula lo pihana e kohopu kapaliliai Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puokukui. Welcome everyone to today's episode of Sacred You, and today I am talking to Nancy Myers. Hello, Nancy.
Hello, Rachel.
And we've just been having a little chat about the difference in weather.
Yeah, me being in Southern California.
And me being in Denmark. I'm afraid it's not to my advantage, the weather. I mean, we're getting some sun. We are getting some sun these days, which is nice because we've not had much this winter. It's been grey but fairly mild. And now we've got to March. It's gone colder but sunny. So...
Well, at least you get to recharge. That's good.
It is really nice. It is really nice to see the sun, and at least you can sort of sit inside and get the sunlight coming in,
exactly.
Without so much of that cold wind. So it's lovely to talk to you today. How are things there in Southern California?
Good. And it can't complain. It's when you do this work, no matter where you are, you're surrounded by a little bit of magic. So, but I do have to say, prayers for what's going on and just trying to turn up the light for everybody to help those suffering. And I think it's important for all light workers. So I just wanted to get that in, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually thinking that before when I was getting ready for the interview, because a lot of the work I do, I don't know if I should say this really, because I'm not selling myself very well, but a lot of the work I do, it is very transformational, and you have to put a lot of work in,
Oh,
and then I was thinking about like what I was reading about your work, and I had this feeling of comfort coming from it that is quite comforting for people. And I was thinking, what I do really doesn't do that. So this is actually, it's a really nice time to talk to you because, things are tough right now, aren't they?
Yeah, things are tough. And it's one thing that Spirit tells me is don't give up. Don't get drugged down in the negative. Try to stay in the vibration of love. That's what you can do to help the most. And so that's what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So where should we start? Where do you want to start telling your story?
Well, I think it's always good to start at the beginning, right? So unfortunately, my beginning is a little sad, but I won't dwell on that. Most of my life, I always believed in spirit and being able to communicate, and that there was something more, after we left these physical bodies. What I didn't think is that I could do it, that I was anybody special. Only those very gifted, very select few could connect with spirit and talk to the angels, or, well, all that changed my son Robbie, was going back to visit his cousins in North Carolina. And he wasn't feeling good, but he said, "No, Mom, I promised the girls, I'm going to come back and visit them." And I said, "Okay." He had a terrible cold. And I gave him a hug, and he walked down the pathway to get in his car. And this shudder came over me. And I just tried to bury it. But 3 nights after that, 3 days after that, I woke up and I could hear the phone ringing. It's not, I don't keep a phone by us. And I knew just by the sound of that phone, phones don't change their tone, right? But this particular morning, the sound of the phone, I was just frightened. And I finally mustered enough courage to get up and go answer it. And indeed, it was my sister-in-law. And when I answered the phone, I said, "Kim, is everything all right?" And she said, "No, Robbie's gone." And I said, "Where'd he go?" and she said, "No, he died." And so people ask me, how did he die? It was a very strange passing. It was kind of a perfect storm. We believe that cold was actually the H1N1. So he was on over-the-counter meds. He was on painkillers for his back. He was drinking a little bit, playing pool with his uncle. And then we found out he had an enlarged heart after he passed, which I didn't know. But anyway, so all those contributed to just basically shutting his system down, his heart down, and he floated out of his body. And, when you go through that, when you go through a tragedy, and I've spoken to many, many people whose spiritual path was started by some kind of trauma, some kind of loss, because it shakes us, doesn't it, Rachel? It's like, it's like the old song, "Is this all there is?" And it really motivates you then to dig deeper, to do the research, to do the work, and to find out. So, that's what I was doing. I had, and stop me whenever you want. I'll just go on and on. So that motivated me to go and see a medium. I had never seen a medium before, but I wanted to know, where did my son go? Is he okay? Will I ever talk to him or see him again? And I do talk about this episode in the book that I wrote, but she said to me, "Oh, your son's right here." And she said, "Do you know what orbs are?" And I said, "Well, not really. I had kind of heard about them, and I thought I had taken a picture the night before or the day before." And I said, "Well, kind of, sort of." And she said, "Well, your son is telling me that that's your work together." And I looked at her and I said, "I don't understand. What do you mean that's our work together?" And she said, "Here's kind of the quote from him. He's saying, our work together is to heal. I will heal souls on this side, and you will heal souls on that side. In other words, he will bring the people to me." And then she said, "He's showing me a bowl of popcorn," because I had no idea. How do I do this, Robbie? How do I go about this? I don't know where to turn. And she said, "He's showing me a big bowl of popcorn." And there was kind of a big joke about Robbie and his popcorn. But she said, "He's leaving it like on the road, like Hansel and Gretel." And he said, "Mom, I'm going to bring circumstance after circumstance in front of you. And all you need do is trust and follow the popcorn." So we kind of switched roles at that point, right? He became my teacher, my parent, and I became his student, his child in this. Because obviously he has a better perspective being on the other side. So that's, what I did then, I said, okay, if this was the purpose of my son, being here and then crossing, I don't say die, I say crossing, then it is up to me. It is my responsibility. It is my duty to do the best that I can. And so I started taking pictures, and, I tell people, first the orbs were and indeed, I started getting orbs. It took a little while, but they first started just kind of gray dots, kind of gray spots. And I was so excited. I said, oh my God, I got an orb, And they didn't have any form. They didn't have any color. I couldn't see anything in them. But I don't want to say religious. I was very diligent at doing this every day and expecting the orbs to be there. And in fact, then they started to evolve, because spirit, I'm sure, said, okay, you want this, we will work with you. You have to do your part. And then spirit will step in and go, okay, we will assist you. So the orbs really started to evolve. The size grew, the color grew, the insides grew. And, when I had that reading from the medium, I said, how is this going to help heal? I don't understand. Can you ask Robbie and she says, Nancy, you are going to hold in your hand proof that the spirit goes on. Your sitters, your clients will be able to see this. It's really nice to go to a medium and get these messages, right? But most people can't see or hear, what the medium is seeing. And so a lot of times I'll work with mediums when they do readings or demonstrations or shows. And as they're reading, I take pictures, and there'll be orbs next to the person. And sometimes I can see the face of their loved one in it. And it kind of enhances the experience and brings it into reality a little bit more for them. So that's kind of our work. Of course, it has evolved a little bit from that, but that's what we do, and I've been doing that now. Robbie crossed in 2010, and so I've been an orb photographer for about almost 12 years now.
Okay. Wow. Okay. 2010 is 12 years ago. That's right. Yeah.
I know. When you lose a loved one, I'll just tell you this really quick story. You think, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through each day, each hour or minute, and then as you learn to, and Robbie was instrumental in this. He said, Mom, you can't concentrate on the last eighth of an inch of my yardstick of life. He said, we had too many good memories, too much for you not to think of me and smile instead of think of me of crying. And as time went on, that's exactly what I was able to do. I switched from being in my pity pool of I'm not ever going to have, to be grateful for what the time that we did have. And that takes time to do that. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time. But, and when Robbie crossed, like I said, he was in North Carolina, and it took a little while for his belongings to come back to me. Can I talk about a little bit of a premonition? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, I talk about this in my book, but when Robbie was born, I had this terrible, terrible feeling that I wasn't going to have him for a long time. And as mothers, you don't want to ever talk about that, because then you think if I say it, it's going to happen. I'm going to bury this deep within me. And that was one of the reasons I had that awful feeling when he walked down the path to get in his car to go to North Carolina. And I was a nervous wreck the whole time he was there. And the night before the morning of the phone call, I woke up and it was 12:33. And I just, you know how you get the goosebumps up and down, and I just tried to ignore it and went back to sleep. Of course, then the phone call the next morning. But when they sent me his belongings, there was his watch, and his watch had stopped at 3:33, which was my time, 12:33. So Robbie was telling me, "Yep, Mom, you felt me. That is when I crossed." So immediately, Robbie started to communicate. There are some people that are of the thought, or what's the word I want? A belief that spirits have to be over on the other side for a long time before they can communicate. And Robbie has taught me, I'm bringing up the watch because Robbie has taught me, Mom, the other side, there is no time. One of his first instructions to me was, Mom, don't wear a watch anymore. Do not get caught up in the illusion of time. Just put it aside. If you believe and you are guided by spirit, everything will happen when it's supposed to, and at the right moment. So I didn't, but what he told me, he said, Mom, we can go and be here for 100 years and then get back on the loop, because it's kind of on a loop. Everything happens at the same time, which is really hard for our little pea brains to get around, right? But and so he can like jump off on that loop and come back. So spirits, I have been contacted by friends who have died within hours, and then they'll leave me a sign or come in through a reading or whatever. So don't think that, you have to wait a certain amount of time before you reach out to your loved one. And the other thing that Robbie told me was, don't think you're taking that loved one or away from anybody or anything important, because they can be many places at the same time. Because I would have a lot of his friends go, oh, I wanted a dream by Robbie, but I'm afraid I didn't want to take him away from you. And I said, no, you ask him, it's fine. It's fine. And he did. He came to many of his friends in dreams.
I tell you, you're answering so many of the questions that I had.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. I think it's interesting that thing you're saying about, because that is sort of one of the things that people get taught when they become mediums, is that people, don't expect a reading from your loved one straight after they've died. And, I've heard that many times. And I wonder if it's because I wonder if it depends on how the clarity with which someone passes.
Well, my son has told me that it's us. It's us here, because mediumship communication is three-way. So we know that, the spirit world is a much higher vibration. So we have to raise our vibration a little bit. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, because when I first heard that, I'm going, what do you mean raise your vibration? How do we do that? What is that? But anyway, we have to meet them. So here's what he said. If the sitter is in deep grief or anger or any other lower vibrational emotion, then it's harder for spirit to get through. They really have to notch down their vibration to meet us in this 3D world. And if we sink even lower with grief or hate or fear, then it's even harder for them to reach us. So the communication between spirit, medium, and the sitter is really determined by the sitter. As long as the medium's doing their work, spirit always shows up in spades. Spirit is there, ready to go. But if they're being blocked, they can't force their way in. So when I first heard the term, well, you need to turn up your vibration, right? I'm going, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, I've since learned that, everything in the world vibrates. But how we do that is and then they'd say, well, drop down into your heart. How do I drop? How do I get down to my heart? But it's really just send love. Just think kind thoughts. Just try to go to joy. Those are the highest vibrational frequencies where we are, love and joy. And so if you can put yourself in that, you have a much better chance of being able to reach the other side, or for them to reach you. And so, it's really important that we try to do that. And then I will add that once we do that and spirit starts talking, spirit is never willy-nilly. Spirit doesn't waste a moment, a word, an image. So they will come in with the most important message or messages for you at that time. And so some things Robbie's told me didn't make sense until 2 years later. But hang on to that, always hang on to that. And you'll have that moment, when that happens. Are you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Excuse me.
Wow. Just processing.
Oh, sorry.
It is a lot, isn't it? Your story, it is, you've been through a lot. I mean, I have two boys. One of them's 19 and, one of them's 9. And the thought of losing either of them is just, just the thought is enough to make me well up in tears. And that's, it's really a tragedy that you lost.
It's the worst.
So young.
It's the worst pain. My son died 2 days before his 28th birthday. So when it comes time, we have his birthday, his, then a space, and then his angel date, I call it. But that's the worst pain there is for a parent to lose a child. But what gets parents through that is, number one, knowing that there's a higher cause, a higher reason, a higher existence. And then one of the things that we don't understand is the higher purpose. When we lose children or a loved one, we get and I'm not taking anything away from grief. We have to go through grief. We have to process it. But grief to me is a very small place, if you will. It's almost like the world closes in on you and all you can concentrate on is my loss, my loss, my loss. But when you're able to finally break through those walls and then go, okay, why did this really happen? What is the higher purpose? What is the bigger plan here? And then how am I to bring this about? Then you begin to understand a little bit more. I mean, don't get me wrong. That pain of grief is always with me. You never get through it. You just learn to handle it. If I could throw all this away and have my son next to me, you bet I would do that in a heartbeat, but that's not my choice. That's not my plan. That's not our purpose in this lifetime, which touches on reincarnation, which I believe. But our plan, our soul's plan, my son and I, and especially Rachel at this juncture in the world, is to try and awaken and heal as many people as we can. We're just trying to plant the seed and trying to prove that, look, and through technology, my camera, look, here's proof. Because when I take a picture of a mom and there's her daughter or her father or whoever in the orb next to them, and they can see that, again, I tell everybody, dust doesn't do that. Dust doesn't form in the faces of loved ones in spirit. And it gives them so much comfort. And it's like, okay, because that is what set me on my adventure, my journey, my search was, where did he go? Does he still exist? That was important to me. Does he still exist? And he's proven that in spades. And don't you think that's comforting when we know and we believe, that one day we will all be reunited again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I lost my mum when I was I think I was 26. And she died after being really ill with cancer for 2 years.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was really, really tough. And when she passed over, I still experienced her being around, which was such a shock to me, because I had been very, very closed to anything to do with spirituality or spirits or anything like that. So it was a huge initiation for me as well. And I think that does happen to a certain number of people, like somebody close to them dying is actually what sets them on their spiritual path. And, I've talked about this before in other podcast interviews, but I really believe that was like it was divine timing, It's like it was all planned that this would happen at a certain age, and I was in my 20s, which is still quite young, to be opening up to spirituality. Without that, I don't know whether it ever would have happened, but if it did, it would have been when I was in my 50s or 60s, probably, because you just get too busy with life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We get wrapped up in the earthly things and we forget about the bigger things, but when that happens, and I'm sorry for your mom's pain, I know she's fine and surrounded by love and with you all the time. People tell me too, when they hear that Robbie passed, they'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss." And I tell them, I appreciate the sentiment, but I didn't lose him. He's right here. He's right with me all the time. And that brings so much comfort. But yes, it is that jolt, and it is divine timing. Divine timing is a very important term because everything happens when it's supposed to. I'll just diverge just a little bit because you brought up divine timing. And I tell people, deja vu. Do you experience deja vu?
Yeah.
And it seems like I had a lot of deja vu right after Robbie crossed, and it would be at the most ridiculous places, and I'm going, I've been here before. I've seen this before, or I've said that before. But it's to reassure our soul because we planned this. We knew, I call those like markers, signposts to let you know that, yep, you're on the right path. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and just trust and follow. That's the biggest thing. And I will say this also. One of the biggest gifts that Robbie has given me from the other side and through all his communications is he has taken away the fear of death. He has told me what the other side is like. He has told me what he's doing, that we're going to be together again, what it feels like to be there. Us humans, we live most of our life in fear of dying. But if we can take that away, then we can truly live. And that was a huge gift that he has given me.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. And it's like you have a different foundation then to build your life upon, knowing, something different about like what's happening. And when you've experienced something yourself, and that's why, like you were saying, it's so important for people to see these orbs.
Yes.
Because then they have an experience, and also looking at those orbs, part of them is feeling that energy. Part of them is getting it, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And I think that sort of personal revelation is so important, because I mean, I still have the humanity part of me that doesn't want to die, that wants to finish all of her projects, that wouldn't want to leave her kids, that, all of this, but I don't have a fear of death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how this work, this spiritual journey changes you, and you mentioned something, it took a lot of work, and being on a spiritual journey is a lot of work. We can't turn it over to anybody else. We have to do the work. The books, the seminars, the workshops, I did a lot of studying, a lot of reading, and for 10 years, but what I learned, it just changes everything. And I mean, I'm still, I'm like you, I don't want to die yet. I don't want to leave. And if there's pain involved, no, thank you, but at least, I know, okay, someone's watching over me and there is a plan. And I do know that I will see not just my son, but my dogs, everybody again. And that is, that's special. That is really special. And Robbie told me, he goes, Mom, you mentioned divine timing. He talks about the holy instant, or, the power of now. He said, when you can live in the now, And that's it. He's, all we get, right, Rachel, is this second right now. And so if you're fully engaged in right now, what does that prevent? It prevents you from worrying about the past or reliving it or regretting it and worrying about what could or will or should happen. Then you allow spirit to bring everything, and everything will fall into place. It's like when we try to drive the bus, we always take it over the cliff. But if we're a passenger and let spirit drive that bus, don't get me wrong, we always have the work. We still have to do our part, but they will guide us. And that's where you find the joy. That's where you find the happiness, and the peace is in the now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very important. Yeah.
Can I take you back to when you were saying about like when you started taking photos, because you've got this message of like, okay, there's an orb thing happening here, Mum.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you are trying to take these pictures. How long did it take you before you started getting some results?
Well, not long. The first orb that I thought I got, it wasn't an orb at all. It was just lens flare, but I thought, okay. So I believe I had that reading in July or August. And one of the first orbs that started appearing was maybe November. So, but I had to prepare myself. I had to be the channel. I had to heal and raise my vibration and then show up. So every night, I would take pictures. I always go out in my backyard and I set the intention. I ask spirit from the highest good for the highest good to come in, take pictures. And then I always say thank you, whether I got orbs or not back then. And then the first orbs started appearing, like I said, in about November. And they were only about the size of a baseball, if that. And like I said, just gray. But I kept at it. And when the colors started to come in, I was ecstatic. And I wanted to know, well, why colors? And it's because I learned that frequency produces vibration. I'm not a physicist here. Frequency produces vibration, and vibration produces color. So I'll get into a little bit of the purpose of the orbs if you would like. So, our chakras, they start red at the root, go up red, orange, green, blue, indigo, violet, right? So I was capturing all those colors and more. So the colors come in, number one, to send messages. If I were to ask my son, can you send me a little love? I would get a pink orb, so pink means love. But if someone was hurt or needed, let's say, healing energy, then I would see a green orb, or if the orbs were coming to give us information or to attune us, I'm talking me now, I would see a indigo color, in the spiritual center, our third eye. It was resonating with that chakra. So if it resonates with that chakra, then it can match and work with that particular vibration in that particular part of our bodies. So when people ask me, what are orbs? There are many things, but they're, of course, loved ones in spirit. At the very foundation, Rachel, they're energy, as we all are. When we leave this body, we revert back to energy. And the orbs are the purest form of our energy. But they're also angels. They're also our loved ones. They're also our guides. They're also teachers. They're also animals and pets and animal totems. But they're also messengers. I had a dear friend. She had a near-death experience. And when she came back from it, she could see orbs with her eyes. I have seen orbs with my eyes, a handful of times. Mainly, I need my camera. But I was having lunch with her, and we're chit chatting, and she starts waving in front of my face. And I go, "What are you doing? Why are you waving in front of my face?" And she said, "Nancy, there are so many orbs around you, I can't see your face." And I said, "Really? What are they doing?" And she said, "They're flying into you. They're flying into your aura. They're flying into the crown of your head. They're flying into your mouth. They're flying into your ears." You know, it's, I love the word inspiration because spirit is, kind of in that word. And it's like, okay, if you all of a sudden are trying to think of how to solve a problem or how to do something, all of a sudden, oh, I got it. Well, guess what? You were inspired, inspirited, and so they're very big in the communication that way. That's how they get to us. They come for healing. They come for guidance. And so that's kind of what the orbs were. Now, you mentioned, you look into the orb and you feel it. Well, I would do that. But when they first started and when the faces first started appearing, at least to me, because I could see the faces, my sitters couldn't at that point. And I could communicate with the spirit through the orb. They would give me messages. I had this one young man, his brother had a terrible, I learned all this in reading, a very terrible snowboarding accident, and he was paralyzed and in a wheelchair. And his brother, who was in front of me, wasn't quite sure about all this, but and nothing wrong with this, but he was as bald as a cue ball. He didn't have much hair at all. And here's his brother, and he shows me he's got dreadlocks. Well, then you get into your human mind, right? You go, no, if he's bald, his brother's got to be bald, right? So I'm kind of fighting with myself. But I said, okay, Nance, get out of your head and just, deliver the message. And then he showed me he was in a wheelchair, and then all the messages about thanking his brother for being there and entertaining and keeping his spirits up. And his brother told me, in fact, yes, he had dreadlocks. So, when that started, unfortunately, my sitters couldn't see it. But as it's progressed now, Rachel, when I capture faces, they're almost like pencil drawings. So now most people can see them. And if I outline them and you adjust your eyes to the orb, then you'll be able to see the face. But the orbs are like an onion too. I'll go back and look at some of the orbs and I'll get a different meaning, a different hit, so it's like the more I heard a saying once, spirit always meets us where we're at, right? So the more developed that we get, the more in tune that we get, the deeper the message, the more we can dig into that. So it's ever evolving, ever changing. I also tell people, they say, well, what do you use, to take the orb photos? I just use a cheap digital camera. I do not use my phone. Number one, I take too many pictures, but phone cameras and high-end cameras, they have too many filters. And so they actually filter out the way the orb shows up. It's kind of like a red infrared filter. And so I don't do that. So I use this camera and I take the picture. My camera is always on the same setting, always with the flash on. So you would expect the orbs are just going to stay put, right? Just show up the same way. Nope. No. And on my website, I go through the different types of orbs, and they're still evolving. Like I said, I've been doing this 12 years and they still evolve and show me different things. I've named them like the spotlight orbs or the crown jewel orbs or the planet orbs, or, it's really a drastic change that they show. And then they come and go. They'll, like my favorite, I call the crown jewels because they almost look faceted and brilliant. But they were only there for about 6 months, went away and never came back. So, again, dust doesn't do that. Now, can you take pictures in a dust storm and say, oh, there's an orb, but those are what I call false orbs. So you never want to take dust on windy days. You never want to point your camera directly into the light, because then you get lens flare. Rain, you don't want to do it. Stuff like that. And again, I go into that a little bit on my website.
So people, if they want to have a go at shooting orbs, they should use a digital camera.
Yes, ma'am. And
it doesn't have to be an expensive one or anything.
No. I use a little Nikon Coolpix, cheap. And, but the key is to leave the flash on always, even during the day. There's a whole thing that I don't have time to get into, but they use the energy of the flash to appear. Yeah. It's not that they're reflecting. It's called fluorescing. But then what's even just as important is your intent, that you ask, that this be from the highest good, for the highest good, and your gratitude. And then you set a routine with spirit. Spirit likes us to talk to them at a certain time and a certain day, or, whatever. You establish that rapport. And so it's the camera, the prayer for the highest good, the intent, and gratitude. I go out, I have done many, many demonstrations where I will take pictures. I'll have, anywhere from 20 to 40 people. That's all I can do at one time. And I'll take pictures of every participant in the, that comes to see me, and knock on wood, Spirit has never let me down. Every single one of those people will have an orb by them, because I believe that they will be there. So it's our faith and trust. So, again, that goes to intent.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's opening up a doorway to make it possible then, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, because my understanding of modern technology is like completely nil. But I guess you can't get orbs like online by kind of snapping like on a video call or something. You can't take a picture and get an orb that way.
Well,
or can you?
You can.
Okay.
My business, my photography, I always thought, okay, I have to be in person, right? And then we had, the epidemic, COVID hit. And so I had some people call me and they go, and they had lost their son, well, can you give us a reading on Zoom and take a picture? And I went, maybe, why not? So in fact, they were in England. And so I brought them up on the screen and I gave them their reading. I said, okay, now I'm going to take some pictures. So what I did is I dimmed the lights. In fact, I did it in this room. I dimmed the lights a little bit and I took pictures with them on the screen. And sure enough, not only was there an orb, but I described their son. There's a mantra that I love to live by. And the great teacher, Wayne Dyer, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, he's just wonderful. His quote was, it says in the Bible, with God, all things are possible. What does that leave out? He added that in, what does that leave out? So if we don't limit spirit is not limited. So, it's, and it's just like, now so many of my medium friends had to revert to Zoom or phone or whatever, because they couldn't do in person, and they're just as strong because, Spirit has told me that what we know now, what we are experiencing now, what we're discovering now is only the tip of the iceberg. They said, you have no idea the magic that awaits you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting. And I am getting a sense, like, from what you've been telling me, but that there is an element of physicality to what you're doing. And like, if we read about like mediumship, sort of going back into the Victorian ages, they were really, really keen on doing these physical I know there's a word for it and I can't remember
it. It is. Yeah. It's physical mediumship. Yeah.
But there was something about like when they would like get things to come out of the ethers, like ectoplasm, and there's like none of us are interested in that now. We don't do that now. But like when I'm hearing you talking, it's like you've specialized like one of the senses, like maybe clairvoyance, I don't know, for this orbs, but also it's like your energy is helping them manifest as well. It's like you're lending a bit of physicality to it, so it can be a little bit more present. And that's just fascinating, Nancy.
Rachel, we all have gifts. We all came in for a purpose. Mine just happens to be, I'm going to be the vessel to take pictures of orbs. And yes, that is a form of physical mediumship, just like the old days, where they had to hear them knock, or they had to see the ectoplasm pouring out of the medium's mouth, or I don't know that I could handle that, but still we're human. And so spirit knows, you guys need to see and hear and feel and taste and touch, to strengthen your belief. And so they've moved this up. They said, okay, well, now we're going to move into this. And we all of us have gifts if we dedicate the time and the effort to find out what they are and to open them. I have several friends who get orbs, but then even with that, I don't know many people that get orbs with the faces of loved ones on a consistent basis like I do. So that's my niche. Other people might get orbs and they have letters or symbols in them, or whatever. So even within a modality, which is, we're talking about orb photography here, then you can branch off 100 different ways. And, and they do, so I talked earlier about my friend who had the near-death experience. And when she was on the other side, she walked into a room. And I just love this story because it's so visual. And she said there were shelves and shelves and shelves as far as you could look into infinity. And on these shelves were gift boxes. But she said every single one was wrapped different. And that's what we do. We come in with our own unique gift, our own gift box, but it is up to us to open it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I really feel passionately about as well, because like, I've had people say to me, well, what's the point of me developing my psychic abilities? I don't want to go and read people's fortunes. And I'm like going, no, that's not it. That's not what we have spiritual and psychic abilities for. There's so million different ways that they can be used, and each one of us, like you're saying, is completely unique. And each of us has that one gift that the divine planted into us, only us, because the world needs us.
Yes. And and you bring up a great point. It's not important for everybody to read people's fortunes. That's not exactly what you said. That's not the reason. The reason is to awaken the awareness that we all are one, and that we are all connected, and what we do to one, we do to all, and that is the ultimate. Well, that's one of the big reasons why we need to open up to spirituality, because then we move into the power of love, the power of compassion, the power of tolerance. And that's when we rise as humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to take you back to sort of where you started from, really, which was specifically that kind of shock where you found out that you could kind of do this stuff. Because I'm imagining that maybe you didn't have any idea about that. Since that's happened, have you heard any stories about other members of your family sort of going back in the lineage? Was there something, that all started to make sense afterwards?
Yeah. yeah, it was a shock the first time that I thought, wait, where did that come from? How did I know that? I would go to these workshops and I'd sit there doubting myself. What am I doing here? I'm not a medium. I can't talk to the other side. But the first time it happens, it's remarkable, but it is a process. It takes a long time to get there, but it's an innate ability in all of us. I can't stress that enough. You just have to pry that can open, and let it out. So how did I find out? Well, I have strong Celtic roots, and on one side and the other side, I have gypsy roots. So I but it wasn't anything that anybody talked about. My Celtic grandmother could read tea leaves, and my gypsy grandmother would have prophetic dreams. So I actually have lineage on both sides, and they have since come in to tell me, this, and that they're helping me. But I never thought about it. I never discussed it. But when we're on this path, we get to meet so many of our ancestors, and find out so much about what they went through, I mean, we go back to the Salem witch trials, or what's the big Renaissance thing, the Christian Crusades, and how many people they killed. And, it was a horrible time to live. So people didn't advertise, people didn't do this. But also, Rachel, I believe that people, the masses like we have now, it's like, don't you think sometimes everybody you talk to, yeah, I'm intuitive, which is wonderful because it means that more people are waking up. But back then they didn't have that. So, and then the ones that realized it, I think if we compared a lot of their abilities to today's abilities, they would almost be rudimentary. But they had to, that's how it's got to start somewhere, at least in this cycle. And so, no one talked about their gifts. No one said, I would have these amazing dreams when I was little, and no one would believe me. And I didn't dare tell people what I was dreaming. My dreams were always about the elementals and the fairies, and, and all of that. And I believe they lived in my walls, and, but, back then, especially at my age, if you said to your parents, oh, grandma was standing at the end of my bed, oh, shut up, or you get beat or put in a mental hospital. Now these kids are coming in, and your generation and the generations to follow, to parents who understand and nurture. When kids come in, I've heard story after story about kids saying, oh, there's grandpa. They never met grandpa, and grandpa's been gone for 5 years, but yet they see him standing there. So they come in with these gifts, and what we've done in the past is shut them down. And now, because parents are more awakened, especially moms, no offense, dads, but especially moms, then they allow their children the space to share and talk about it without ridiculing them and judging them. I mean, we've heard so many stories about these kids coming in and remembering past lives that can be documented. It's incredible. So things are shifting, gifts are opening, and it's just a beautiful thing to witness.
It is, and things are changing slowly, bit by bit. I'm not sure it's quite as fast here in
no, we still have a long way to go, but I think we're on an upward trajectory, which is good.
Yeah. But that's it. So people who are sensitive to these things, the information is out there for them to find.
Yes,
when they need it, and the people are out there for them to find as
absolutely.
well. And that's really lovely, because we have forgotten. As a society, as a culture, this is part of our humanity. This is not something only special people have. This is something that everybody has. Like we all have all the qualities that every human has. This is just another one of them. And again, you know, like if you're a very talented runner, you didn't get that proficiency at running by sitting on the sofa. You had to go out and you had to build all those muscles, and just like you have built your orb muscles.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. You work at it. You know, it's not anything worth having is worth working for, right?
Yeah.
And I will add, you know, to your description of everybody can do it and we all should do it. And there's nothing wrong with doing it. You know, I get that a lot from people who are still kind of stuck in the old ways, I'll say. And, you know, that this isn't evil. This is beautiful.
Yeah. This is part of who we are. And it's time for us to own that. And yeah, talking about another myth, like when I was a kid, because I had a feeling that I had something in me, but I was under the impression that if you were psychic or clairvoyant or whatever, then you had to be the seventh daughter of a gypsy lineage, and you had to be able to do it from the moment you opened your eyes at birth, basically. Exactly. And if you couldn't do that, if you didn't come in like hearing the voice of spirit, it meant that you weren't psychic, and that I think has done ever such a lot of harm, that illusion, because so many of us need to work through, you know, there's a lot of wounding from all of those, you know. Just hundreds of thousands of women and men dying in Europe and so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff to get over sometimes before you can start going, I do hear voices. You know, there's psychological stuff in the way. It doesn't necessarily show itself at all, can be completely blocked. So, you know, if anybody's listening and they feel like you know, they're drawn that way, but they think they've got no talent, don't worry about it. Listen to you. If you're drawn towards it, there's a reason. There's something to uncover.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody is important. Everybody can do this. And there's a reason why we are all asking these deep questions now and moving towards this. I love the younger generation. You know, they're really tapping into this because they're going, well, why did we always do it that way? Why not do it this way? So they're asking those kind of questions, and that will move us even faster. I'll add one quick thing if we have time. This work and what I went through, I found out, of course, I lost my son. My dad lost a son. My grandfather lost a son. His grandfather lost a son. And Robbie came in and said, Mom, because of the way you handled this and stepped into it, and I'm still working on that, and embraced it, he said, not only did you heal the past, but you broke the karma and healed the future. So there's an importance to this work too that goes beyond what we were just discussing. So yeah, I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah. And so there's family lineages that are healing.
Yes.
And then, you know, we're starting to spread that out to the cultures and the societies around us now. Yeah. I mean, we don't, like you say, you know, because we're down here sort of in the middle of it, it is hard for us to have that overall perspective, because we're sort of, you know, on the
battlefront through the mud.
as it were. But you know, I mean, I can remember when meditation was completely rejected by the medical profession.
And yoga.
And yoga.
Like, that was an evil practice.
Yeah, well, that is still a bit way out in some places in Europe. There is still a kind of Christian thing that it's evil. But I mean, I think in America, I think, you know, something in certain terms you are, especially California, you're a bit in front of us.
Thank goodness.
In some ways.
Yeah, but you're right. And, you know, you touched on meditation, and messages from spirit over and over and over and over again is take time to do meditation. It doesn't have to be cross-legged, you know, saying Om and, you know, going into trance. Just take 2 or 3 minutes to center yourself, calm yourself, so you can hear or receive the messages. That's all it takes. We're so busy, you know, in this hubbub of life. we lose that connection to spirit, and that's how we get it back. So I want to stress the importance of even 2 or 3 minutes a couple times a week.
I used to have a yoga teacher when I lived in the UK, and her name was Dallas, and she was just absolutely lovely woman, and she'd been teaching yoga for years and years and years, and she was very British, very sort of no nonsense, and she said to me one day, I can see all sorts of colours when I'm teaching this class. And I said, oh, really? Because I didn't know, she'd never mentioned anything about anything psychic or spiritual or whatever. And she said, yeah, after all these years of doing yoga, it really does stuff to your chakras.
Yeah. And it opens you up. I just taught a class, Reiki 1 class, because I'm a Reiki Master. And I had some women here, and we were trying to open up the channels and the chakras and teach them. And this one gal woke up afterwards and she said, I saw so many colors, So I said, that's a good thing. That means things are happening, things are opening. And yeah. and it's fun when you open and connect. Like I said, I've been doing this for 12 years, Rachel, and I get up every day. Okay, Spirit, what are you going to show me today? What am I going to do today? How can I serve? And you start the day like that, and it's always magical.
Yes, absolutely. And what is your next thing? Have you got a next thing that you're about to get into?
Well, actually, I just launched my podcast too. So I do that on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month. It's called The Spheres of Spirit. Thank you, Robbie. He did that. But I'm kind of excited. The end of the month, I'm going to go to the Hopi Indian Reservation. And I will be there for a week, and I will be with all the wisdom keepers and immersed in their ceremonies and taken to very sacred places that the public isn't usually allowed. There's 13 of us going. So I'm really excited about that. My work has taken me all over the world. The orbs never let me down. I just got back from Peru, Machu Picchu, and through there in September. I hope to be going to England and in the fall, but I'm not sure if that's going to work out. I try to do one big trip, every year. And then my son is still after me to write another book. So we'll have to see how that does. But so that, that'll keep me busy for now. I still do readings and I still do my classes and then of course, the podcast. So that's enough. Thank you, Spirit. But I don't have, we're just now starting to have big events. I am leaving for Florida next month to do a kind of a private, smaller, controlled event. But to have the big events again, we're just not ready to do that yet. But I think that's going to be happening soon. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, here in Denmark, we're pretty open now. Everything's open, has been for about 2 months.
There's good.
Not really any restrictions at all, and that all seems to be working. Okay.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. But
well, hopefully we're there soon.
I just wanted to say that I'm really sorry about what happened with your son, and it's just such a tragedy, and I really feel for you. But at the same time, I'm also really grateful for you and what you're offering to the world and the service that you have given to everyone that you've worked with. I can just really feel that energy coming off you, Nancy, of like I said right at the beginning, of like having brought comfort to so many people, and all of those ripples like going out into the web, so yeah. It's I'm really, my heart's really with you for the tragedy, but you've made good of it. You and Robbie, you've made good of it. Yeah,
that's a lovely and beautiful way to say that, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's why I do this work, and so thank you for acknowledging that and feeling it. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. What's the best way for people to find you on the internet, on social media, and so on?
My website is theorbconnection.com, all one word. I have a Facebook page, The Orb Connection. You can go on there. My books are on Amazon, Entering the Light Fantastic. And the second one was Encircled by the Light Fantastic. And so if you leave me a message in either one of those places, my Facebook page or my website, I can certainly respond. I get people sending me pictures all the time, saying, what do you see? What do you see? And then, of course, my podcast, if you'd like to tune in, you can go to YouTube, Spheres of Spirit, and it should pop up.
Brilliant. All right. Well, it's been lovely talking to you today. Any last words of wisdom before we finish?
No, I would just ask people to not give up hope. Stay at the power of love is, I think it was Jimi Hendrix said, when the power of love overrides the love of power is when we get into a better place. I'm scrambling that terribly, but it was something like that. So always act from a place of love, always be kind, and it's the little things. It's just the little things that change the big things. So I want to thank you for having me. It was a lovely conversation, Rachel. Thank you.
It's gone really fast, that hour, hasn't it?
It did. It went really fast.
Yeah. It always does. I love doing this. It's just so much fun. People are so interesting.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day you can be a guest on my show.
Oh, I would love that.
Okay. Well, I will. It would be May or June, but we will work it out.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay. Great.
So thank you for your time today, and bye everybody, and thank you for listening.
Bye everybody. Thank you. Take care.
We love you. Bye.
Haina mai ka puana e kahaliko pua kukui. He noa no na ka ui